I leaned back in my chair, looking around the room and thinking, there are too many beautiful women in this room. Why did Mark Lavalier choose my wife? Why did she agree? Why did she abandon me? Our children have grown and become more independent. They will not be home soon. Linda and I had discussed months ago about what we wanted to do when the kids weren't around. A small part of me wondered what the future of Linda and my relationship would be. Of course, I assumed we would have better quality time together, becoming closer. And then it hit me like a sudden blow. Linda's plans for the future might not include me. I felt like a fool. That thought wiped away all my sorrow and disappointment, leaving only anger in me. I could see the concern in the eyes of those around the table. They thought I was about to explode or do something very stupid. Dee asked worriedly, "Are you okay, Shim?" 4 beautiful young girls sat in a distant corner on the dance floor. I could see them over Dee's shoulder. Why didn't Mark Lavalier choose one of them? I watched them for a while, and then started to laugh loudly. Everyone at the table looked at me in fear. I laughed so hard that everyone turned to look at us. Tears streamed down my face as the laughter finally subsided. I wiped my tears and smiled at everyone. I realized my life had just changed significantly. I was no longer in a monogamous relationship. I no longer needed to worry about my wife's feelings because she no longer cared about me. Everyone stared at me. I smiled at Dee, took off my wedding ring, and handed it to a surprised Dee. I said, "Tell this to Linda when you see her. I have things to do." I stood up, threw $10 on the table. "This is for my drink. Since you encouraged Linda to have an affair, you can pay for it." As I left the table, my former friends called out to me. As I left the club, I wondered what I would say to them if they tried to follow me. The only thing I was sure of, if any husband followed me and did not heed my warning, I would break his nose. As I walked away, my thoughts churned relentlessly. Linda would be selfishly happy, and I would be selfishly happy too. When I arrived at the hotel, I asked the young girl at the reception desk if they had any large suites available. She said no, but if I wanted a larger room, there would be a honeymoon suite. She listed the many amenities available in the room. "I'll take that room. We won't be able to rent out the room you're currently in since it's too late. I will pay for both rooms. My wife will stay in the old room, and I'll be in the suite." The young girl looked at me strangely. For a moment, I thought she was assuming I was doing something special for my wife. After she gave me the new room key card and directions, I told her if my wife asks for my room key, don't give it to her. Actually, could you leave specific instructions not to let my wife know that I'm still in the hotel if she asks? The young girl seemed curious and smiled. She said she would make sure the hotel staff were informed of my request. I went up to the old room to get my clothes, leaving Linda's clothes and personal items in the trash. I took the elevator to the top floor. The honeymoon suite was spacious, even featuring a jacuzzi tub on the large balcony overlooking the city. I brought an expensive tuxedo with me, just in case we decided to have a late drink at one of the fashionable restaurants nearby. I put on the coat and went back to the club, stopping by an ATM to withdraw cash. When I returned to the club, there was a long line of people waiting to get in. I walked up to the entrance as if I owned the place. The man at the door asked if he could help me. I smiled at him and handed him a $100 bill. He smiled back, opened the door, and let me in. My former friends were sitting at a table when I entered. I looked around the club, hoping to see what I had seen earlier. A table near the dance floor with 4 beautiful young girls sitting. There were no men with them, so maybe they were having a bachelorette party. Perfect for me. I walked through the entire club. Dee noticed me as I passed by the table and tried to wave and call my name. Everyone at the table turned to look at me. I ignored them as I crossed the hall and approached the table with the 4 girls naturally. Why are 4 beautiful girls sitting alone? All 4 girls smiled at me. The tall brunette laughed and said, "We're here with our girlfriend. That idiot left her for some whore." And we're cheering her up. The brunette was clearly drunk. If you ladies don't mind, I'd love to dance with your girlfriend and have the chance to cheer her up." Ace turned to the petite redhead. She smiled and extended her hand for me to help her out of the booth. As we started dancing, I asked her name. "Samantha. My name is Jim. How could anyone be so foolish to lose a beautiful woman like you?" "Because he's a jerk." I smiled and grinned at her. We talked a bit while dancing. She was studying at university to become a nurse and grew up nearby. The song ended and a slower tune began. We continued to dance. The music wasn't too loud, and Samantha asked, "Are you the one who was married, Jim?" "We just broke up." "Was it your wife who was dancing with Mark Lavalier earlier?" I noticed she disappeared after that dance. "Did you notice it too?" "Everyone in the club noticed it, Jim." I gave Samantha my best smile. "I think you discovered we broke up right when I found out." Samantha gave me a warm smile, and we danced very close until the song ended. We both were newly hurt by people we cared about, and it felt good to hold each other. When the song ended, we returned to Samantha's table. Samantha said to the others at the table, "I know we agreed no men at our table, but I want Jim to stay with us." The clearly playful brunette tried to tease me and Samantha. "I don't know. We had an agreement, no guys." "What if I buy a few bottles of champagne as an apology?" "I don't know. An agreement is an agreement." Samantha smiled at all three and said, "We saw Mark Lavalier leave with his wife." All three voices exclaimed at once, "No way." The three girls shuffled around the booth to make room for Samantha and me. Before I could get their names, the blonde girl next to Samantha asked, "Did you have an open marriage?" "Absolutely not." Then another blonde girl asked, "What did she say to you?" "Nothing. She said she was going to the restroom and sneaked out the back door of the club with Mark." I pointed over my shoulder without turning back, and all those bastard former friends of mine covered for her. Then the waiter arrived. I asked everyone if they'd like champagne, and everyone smiled. "Your two most expensive bottles of champagne." The girls clapped. Before they could ask me another question, I introduced myself. Their names were Kim, Christy, and Susan. They were all studying to become nurses like Samantha. After the champagne arrived, and everyone had a full glass, Christy, the brunette, asked what I planned to do about my wife. "As far as I'm concerned, we split up the moment she walked out that door." "Any kids?" "Unfortunately, yes, a boy and a girl, 15 and 13 years old. But in a few years, they'll be on their own, and I'll be changing wives." Samantha grabbed my hand and said loudly, "Forget about it. You're with me tonight." We clinked glasses and drank the champagne. I shared a few jokes with the girls, and they shared some with me. We laughed and drank, danced with some guys and also with each other. Samantha sat back with me, her arm wrapped around mine. As the evening wore on, Christy became angry, suddenly stood up from the table, and ran off. We all turned to see where she was going. It turned out Dee decided to come talk to me, but Christy stopped her near the table of my former friends. We couldn't hear what they were saying, but we could see they were having a heated conversation. It all ended after Christy poked Dee in the chest and yelled in her face. Dee sat down crying. Christy then scolded everyone at that table. All the surrounding tables laughed at the shame of my former friends. When Christy returned, Kim and Susan high-fived her. Christy drank her champagne, smiled at me, and said, "No fool will approach this table until the end of the night." I turned back to look at their table. All of them were standing up to leave. Jane and Dee were both crying. None of them looked our way. "What did you say, Christy?" "I saw this woman gathering courage to come talk to you, so I pushed her back and told them my thoughts about people who help adulterers." "You really made an impression." They clearly wanted me to forgive Linda, to ease their conscience about this. "I have to kiss you." Samantha grabbed my head and said, "Oh no, you don't," and she kissed me passionately on the lips, while the other three girls cheered her on. After the kiss ended, Samantha gave me a sweet smile. Kim said, You two should get a room. Actually, I said, I have a suite at the hotel down the street, and you girls look like you can't drive. If we hurry, we can still order champagne to the room. After I settled the bar bill, we all headed to the hotel together. Samantha clung tightly to my arm, and the other 3 girls clung to us for support. At the reception desk, I ordered 4 bottles of champagne for my room. When I told the receptionist that my room was a honeymoon suite, all the girls started giggling. In the elevator, the 3 girls began singing the wedding tune. Samantha turned red but clung to me even tighter. As we approached the room door, the girls started laughing and saying that I should carry the bride over the threshold. Samantha looked at me with her big, beautiful eyes and said, "You don't have to do that if you don't want to." I opened the door, lifted Samantha up, and carried her into the room. As I stepped into the room, Samantha wrapped her arms around my neck and kissed me passionately. The girls found this amusing and stopped teasing us when Christy saw the jacuzzi on the balcony. Before I could put Samantha down, all 3 had stripped down to their underwear and were sitting in the jacuzzi. I set Samantha down on the ground, she still holding my hand and smiling. There was a knock at the door. It was the champagne being delivered to the room. We brought the champagne over to the girls. They joked and giggled. Susan told me I was overdressed and needed to strip down. I laughed and told them I was keeping Samantha company. They yelled at Samantha to get in the jacuzzi, but she just smiled and pulled me back to the room. We went to the bridal suite, and her friends sang the wedding tune from the balcony, laughing nonstop. This morning, I woke up with Samantha wrapped around me and the 3 other girls naked on the king-size bed. They must have come in after Samantha, and I fell asleep. I sneaked out of the bed. Samantha looked at me. I smiled at her, and she smiled back. "Did you have fun, Jim?" "Yes, it was the best night of my life." "Any regrets?" "Not at all." "Let's take a shower together." Samantha slid out of bed and pulled me into the bathroom, wanting to do something I had never done with Linda. As soon as we got into the shower, I lifted Samantha up and let her sit on me in a standing position. I then leaned her against the wall while she wrapped her legs around my waist. The standing position was challenging, but I had one of the best orgasms of my life. Samantha had already climaxed twice before, very loudly. When Samantha and I came out of the shower, we discovered that our love-making noises had woken up the girls. They were disheveled but happy, ordering room service and drinking mimosas. Christy said, "I can't wait to get into that shower." You 2 made it sound like the best shower ever. All 3 girls laughed loudly. After everyone showered and left, except for Samantha, she asked if I could drive her home. While driving, she leaned on me. "Jim, I know what your wife did was awful, but you could still go back to her. If not, I would be very happy if we could see each other again." Samantha smiled at me. "I would be very happy about that, Samantha. Right now, I have no intention of staying with my ex-wife. I really enjoyed being with you. You are what I need right now. So call me if you think we can be together." I kissed Samantha in front of her house. As she opened the door, Christy sat on the sofa and smiled at me, waving as I left. I realized I had been delaying making a decision about what to do with Linda. Going back to the club was a sudden reaction to Linda's betrayal. It didn't solve my problem with Linda, but it made me feel much better. When I got home, I rested for a while and slumped down in a chair in the living room. I didn't bother turning on the lights because I was thinking about how to end my broken marriage with the least harm to the children. After a while, I don't know how long, I heard a car in the driveway and keys turning in the lock. Jim, I'm home." Her voice sounded just like it always did when she came home after running errands. She closed the front door and turned on the lights. I turned to look at her. She looked the same as always, the blue dress still draped on her like last night. Her black hair flowed down her back, just like before. Her appearance, the ring on her finger, everything was the same. It seemed as if nothing had changed, as if she hadn't spent the night and betrayed me this morning with some jerk. It can't be. I thought there must be some difference. some sign that she had done something, at least some shame on her face. But no, it was only me. "The same old person as always," she said with a gentle smile. Of course, she knew what I was thinking. "Nothing has changed here. My love for you is still the same as yesterday. I wish you could say the same." Hearing myself speak, I realized how passionate I sounded. "Jim," with the look of a dead gentleman, I looked at Linda, pointing towards our bedroom. "Don't start. Go take a shower." After trying to say a few words while I still pointed towards the bedroom, Linda finally went. After her shower, she came back down. "Jim, where are my clothes from last night?" "Probably still at the hotel room, where you left them." "You didn't bring my clothes back." "No. Did you leave anything important there?" Linda looked like she was about to say something when she realized her next line would be about me not paying attention. Instead, she sat in silence when she realized how stupid that sounded. "Why did you do it, Linda?" Linda sighed. "It was Mark Lavalier. He's wealthy and famous, could have any woman he wants. Last night when he asked me to dance, I felt like the most popular girl in the room. He made me feel special." Linda was still glowing from the night before as she said this. I noticed she wasn't paying attention to our conversation as she reminisced about moments from last night. That was the moment I realized everything was really over. Linda would always treasure her time with Mark Lavalier more than any moment with me. I was just an afterthought. "You love him." "No, I don't love him. It was just sex." "I love you, Jim. You and I have different understandings of how to treat someone you love." I could see from the surprise on Linda's face that she felt entitled. I was just a man crying over hurt pride, which is sad, because she hurt my self-respect just to feed her own. "I came back to you, Jim, because I love you. If he had asked me to stay, to become his girlfriend or his wife, would I be here right now?" Linda hesitated, then realized I was watching. "Of course not. I love you, Jim." You hesitated, Linda. You know what this look means. You would have stayed if he had asked. It was just one night, just sex. The argument is over. I need to think. Pack some things for yourself and the kids, and stay with your parents for this week. But Jim, the argument is over. If you really want to resolve this right now, with how I'm feeling at the moment, you won't like the outcome. This time, my voice was full of anger. Linda packed her bag and left. As soon as she was out of sight, I started my plan. When I saw Linda standing at the door in her blue dress, unchanged, I knew something had to change if I was going to get past this. I called my boss and said I needed 2 weeks off. Then, I rented a truck and bought some materials from the hardware store: wood, drywall, paint, and 2 doors. When I got home, I got my tools and started working. First, I removed the main door and the windows around it. After cutting a large gap, I installed 2 main doors. I put the old main door on the right side and the new one on the left. Then, I built a wall right at the main entrance, in the middle of the house, and installed drywall. I was turning the house into a duplex. I installed a new back door on the left side, where the new kitchen would be. The new kitchen would face the living room, just like on the other side. The office became the 3rd bedroom on my left side. The dining room became the 3rd bedroom on Linda's right side. When I was done, each side of the duplex house was almost identical, except for Linda's separate garage. Later, I would build another garage on my side. I changed the locks of the garage and the code of the garage door so that only I had access. I also built a fence in the backyard, splitting the garden in half. Now I had a duplex house. I called the kids every day and told them I was working around the house. Linda kept wanting to talk, but I always said I wasn't in the mood to listen to what she had to say. A few days later, I called Samantha just to hear her voice and maybe have a chance to spend more time with her. "I thought you forgot about me. I can't stop thinking about you. Do you want to go out with me?" "No, don't tease me anymore." "No, I'm serious. I really want to go out with you. I'm thinking about going away for the weekend, just the 2 of us." "Really? Where to? The Bahamas. That sounds exciting. Can I make it this weekend? Fly out on Thursday and return on Tuesday. Yes, yes, yes. Just bring your phone and passport. We'll buy everything else we need there. After talking about the fun we're about to have, I had to let her go so I could pay for the plane tickets and book the hotel. A last-minute trip to the Bahamas isn't cheap, but who cares? If Linda divorces me, she's going to get half of our savings and a portion of my salary for child support. I smiled, realizing that it seems like Linda is paying for half of the trip with Samantha. I transferred our savings into a bank account only in my name. I also changed it so my salary would be deposited into that account. I didn't think Linda would cancel the credit cards, but I wanted access to that money, just in case. I worked 16 hours a day to get all the walls in place, a bit unfinished on my side. By Wednesday, I managed to trim and paint the wall on Linda's side. I knew I'd eventually have to separate the electricity, gas, and water, but for now, since Linda's side shared gas and electricity, she couldn't turn off my part. On Wednesday night, I told Linda to bring the kids back on Thursday morning. On Thursday morning, I locked my side of the house and sat in a chair in front of the house, waiting for them. When they arrived and got out of the car, they stood on the front lawn, confused. Emma was the first to speak. "Dad, what have you done?" "I turned the house into a duplex. Don't you like it?" All three turned back to look at me as if I were crazy. They stood there with their mouths agape. "Don't worry, kids. I finished the right side and moved your stuff to the new rooms. I'll show you the left side of the new house while Linda takes your stuff to the rooms." They were all astonished. The short tour ended as we gathered in the living room on the right side of the house. Tommy: "But Dad, the living room is much smaller." "Don't worry, kids. You won't notice the difference. In fact, I need to install a garage on the other side of the house, and when I do that, I'll put in a swimming pool with a jacuzzi." This made the kids laugh. Linda told the kids to unpack. She looked at me wanting to talk, but I followed the kids to help them arrange their stuff and make sure they had everything they needed. After they unpacked, I pulled out some sandwiches I had bought at the local deli, and we had lunch at the kitchen table. Emma asked me, "Dad, what's all this about?" But she was mainly watching Linda's reaction. After spending a few days with Linda, Emma, and Tommy clearly knew something was wrong, and their mother was avoiding their questions. "Oh, we're getting close to the empty nest period. I realize things aren't going to stay the same forever. I'm just preparing." "Gee, Dad, you at least should have discussed it with us first, to see how we feel about it. Actually, it was your mother's idea. She said she decided we needed a change, and she needed something different." I stared at Linda with a smile on my face. Linda looked surprised. "Mom, why would you make such an important decision without discussing it with us?" Emma asked. Tommy also said, "Yeah, Mom, don't you care about what we think?" Linda looked confused. "It's just a misunderstanding. Your father misunderstood my feelings. You know, I was very clear about my intentions. In fact, when I saw you fully committed to your decision, I knew there was no turning back." Linda looked like she was about to cry and left the room. Tommy asked, "What's wrong with Mom lately?" "She cries over everything." I shrugged and told them they should ask their mother. Before Emma could ask another question, I told them that I had planned a trip to the countryside and would be back in a few days. I told them I wouldn't be reachable during the trip, but would call them every night. I kissed the tops of their heads and quickly headed towards the door. I wondered if they realized that I didn't say goodbye to their mother, who was in the bedroom. I picked up Samantha from her apartment, and we started our trip. It was one of the most amazing moments of my life. We flew first class, stayed at a 5-star resort, and were pampered like royalty. A weekend full of joy, sun, sand, waves, cuisine, and drinks, and better yet, Samantha was very appreciative and always tried to show she liked being with me. When it was time to go back, we were both completely sunburned, and I knew every inch of Samantha's wonderful body. On Tuesday, I dropped Samantha off at her apartment. Samantha kissed me passionately right at the front door. "Do you want to stay another night with me?" "Yes, I would love to, but I need to meet some people, and you have class tomorrow. Call me before you go to sleep. I need to hear your voice before I sleep." I kissed her one last time and said, "With pleasure." I drove home with a smug smile. Samantha told me last night that she could see herself falling for a man like me. As I drove down the street to my house, I saw Linda's car parked in her driveway. I parked on the street in front of my part of the house, wanting to avoid Linda while cleaning up. Linda knocked on my front door. "You're back?" "Yes, I'm back. Is there something you want to say?" "Can I come in?" "No, you're not allowed on this side. To be clear, this is my personal living space, and you're not welcome here." Linda was clearly shocked, looking at me for a moment before turning back to her part of the house. The reality that I would not be living on Linda's side of the duplex house had become a fact. We both sat at the kitchen table on her side. "Jim, I love you and I want things to go back to normal." "That's not going to happen." "Why not?" "Because if you haven't realized, you did something that has forever changed how I feel about you. This should not have happened. In fact, nothing can undo what you did or my feelings about it. But I love you." I gathered my thoughts. Imagine we were dating, as a couple among our friends. You leave me and go off with another man, spend the night, and the next morning having sex with him. If you had done this on our first date, would there likely be a second date? But Jim, that was Mark. I don't care who it was. You chose someone else over me, Jim. I'm trying to tell you that you didn't choose Mark over me. So you didn't choose to sneak out the back of the club. You didn't choose to have sex with Mark Lavalier. It was just one night. You had a lifetime to show me how much you loved me. The moment another famous person talked to you, I became trash. Does this mean I should keep you away from all famous athletes, actors, politicians? You know, there's a marathon this weekend. Do you plan on sleeping with the winner? Jim, this isn't fair. With a calm, steady tone, I spoke. So here it is. Now you want me to be fair. You want a chance to mitigate your betrayal. A good opportunity to convince me to stop being angry about what you did. A good opportunity to make me feel ashamed for feeling betrayed. A fair chance to force me to put the family ahead of my pain. I seem to be the only one expected to be fair in this relationship. I reached across the table and took her hand. She smiled and clasped my hand with both of hers. I looked deeply into Linda's eyes, knowing I was about to hurt her. Linda needed to know exactly how our new relationship was going to develop in the future. And yes, I was also eager to let her know what that feels like. It's too late, Linda, too late. Yes, too late. I found someone else. No. Linda withdrew her hand as if mine was burning. Do you know who it is? I'm sure Dee and your friends told you who I was with that night after you left. The redhead I danced with, who held me tight as we danced, the woman who replaced you on the anniversary you threw away. As the words "replaced you" and "threw away" reached her, I looked into Linda's eyes and saw sadness. I realized that Dee must have sent Linda photos of Samantha and me dancing slowly together, looking like lovers. With a strained voice, Linda said, "Are you doing this to get back at me? Bringing a 24-year-old girl in my face for revenge?" Actually, she's 21. I spent 4 days with her in the Bahamas. You know, the dream vacation you and I always wanted to go on. It was really impressive. I knew I was smiling broadly as I said that, but I couldn't help it. The weekend was truly impressive. Linda stared at me after I finished speaking. I could see my words made her very angry. I knew the twisted smile on my face was fueling her anger. I reminded myself of the kids and took a deep breath, trying to relax my face so the smile would disappear. With burning eyes, which I knew would be followed by blistering words, Linda opened her mouth and pointed at me. But as she saw my smile reappear, she realized that I anticipated every word she was about to say. Linda froze, then sighed, closed her mouth, and placed her hands on the table. We sat in silence, staring at each other. I knew Linda wanted to yell in my face, scorch my backside, put me in my place for what I had done, but she realized that she no longer had any moral high ground. The leverage she used to have in our relationship based on love and trust, the same love and trust she easily wiped away for a night of sex. Linda finally recognized that what she did cost her more than she imagined. I'm sure when Linda decided to sleep with Mark, she thought she was only spending a small fraction of the points she had accumulated over our years of marriage. She finally doubted that she foolishly gambled everything she had. Linda sat in silence for a while, staring at her clasped hands on the table. It doesn't matter. I love you. Yes, I'm still sure that my love has special meaning. Why would you think my love matters to you after what I did? Clearly, your love for me meant nothing to me, so why should I value your love? But I don't want to lose you. Oh, I don't understand why you think you can completely destroy my trust in you and still expect to keep me. You underestimated me, and now you don't deserve me. Linda looked bewildered. I'm going to my side. I still have a lot of work to do around the house. I'll be back for dinner with you and the kids. Please don't disturb me until then. I stood up and went back to my apartment. Linda was crying as I left. Leaving Linda was genuinely heartbreaking. I wanted to hold her like I used to, but deep down, I knew that we could never go back to how we were. The Linda I thought was my wife no longer existed and would never return. All I would have with her were painful memories of what we could have had, things she had carelessly destroyed without a hint of regret. Before dinner, I took the kids to my part of the house to show them around. I showed them the new kitchen area and how I planned to replace the back wall with glass, looking out onto the new swimming pool. They looked worried as they saw the fence dividing the backyard, realizing that this side would be Dad's. Then, I showed them their new rooms on my side of the house. Why do I need 2 rooms in the house, Dad? Tommy asked. Because this side will be Dad's home, and the other side will be your mom's. Are you and Mom getting divorced? Emma asked. Mom never says anything, no matter how many times we ask. No, we're just separated for now. I don't want to be just a weekend dad. So I thought it's best to split the house, and you kids can live on whichever side you want. Before we could continue, Linda came to the front door to announce dinner was ready. We ate in silence. Linda looked tense. Clearly, the kids were getting a better understanding of the situation. Suddenly, Tommy said loudly, I'm going to move in with Dad as soon as he finishes decorating my room. Linda looked shocked. Your dad said we are separating. We're not. It's just a misunderstanding, and we haven't finished discussing it. Emma slammed her hand down on the table and yelled out, Who changed? I want to know. Emma and Tommy looked back and forth between Linda and me. I stared at Linda. Linda stared at her plate. As Linda began to cry, the kids understood the answer. I told the kids that their mother was tired and needed to rest. I helped Linda stand up and walked her to the bedroom, undressed her, and put her into bed. I quickly kissed her forehead as if she was a small child waking up from a nightmare. I turned off the lights and closed the bedroom door. I focused my emotions towards Linda as I would towards one of my children, a grown child who committed a terrible crime and was sentenced to life in prison. I still loved my child, but they would no longer be a part of my daily life or thoughts. First, I went to Tommy's room. He was lying on his bed texting with friends. I asked if he wanted to talk about it. He said no. Really no. Then, I went to Emma's room. Emma was angry and crying. Why did Mom do this, Dad? You have to ask your mom. You can't just forgive her. Then I will never be able to forgive myself. Sitting beside Emma, I knew, but I wanted us to still stay together as a family. We are still together. I just don't sleep in the same room with your mom anymore. I hugged Emma. We said we loved each other, and I went back to my part of the house. This had become our new normal. I always went to work before the kids woke up, so our morning routine didn't change. Linda and I still shared taking the kids to friends, group activities, and sports. We still had regular family dinners together whenever possible, at Linda's part of the house. Linda tried to talk to me about us once a week, but I refused, saying I didn't want to discuss it. Another clear change was in the kids' school activities. I never stood or sat next to Linda at the kids' school events. If Linda approached me, I immediately excused myself and went to the restroom. When I came back, I sat or stood somewhere else. I was never alone for long, as at least one of the single or divorced women we knew quickly found a way to sit next to me. And yes, they always asked, and my answer was that we were separated. Over the next month, I bought new clothes, new kitchenware, new cabinets, and new furniture for my part of the house. My part of the house had been transformed into a luxurious bachelor apartment with a huge TV and a new entertainment system. When I bought a new top-of-the-line convertible, Linda tried to ask me about finances. "Jim, can we afford all this? That car must have cost a fortune." "Oh, Linda, my car was 8 years older than yours, and I needed a new one. You always bought new cars twice as often as I did, so I just invested a few of those years into my new car. As for everything else being new, you didn't really think I was going to live in a dump, did you? About the furniture, I thought I was being kind not to force you to give up any of your favorite furniture pieces you bought to decorate your house. I would happily share our furniture." "No thanks, I've never been attracted to your taste in interior design. I never said anything before. Because I wanted you to be happy and furniture wasn't that important to me." I left her to ponder that statement for a few minutes. "Don't worry, we have enough money. In fact, the house is paid off, and when the kids move out, my part of the house will be too big for my needs. I'll rent out my part of the house for additional income. So money isn't an issue." Linda smiled at me, her smile as if someone was about to get lucky today, and reached out to squeeze my shoulder. "I'm not complaining. You like your new car. You've been working out and look very attractive in your new clothes." "Thanks. I can't take all the credit. Tommy and Emma wanted me to get a convertible so they could drive it, and Samantha helped me pick out new clothes and furniture. We have very similar tastes." Linda's smile vanished at the mention of Samantha, and her hand left my shoulder. "Oh, I was just wondering." Then Linda turned away. I didn't mean to throw Samantha in Linda's face, but Samantha was becoming an important part of my life. I also realized that now I often think more about Samantha than Linda's feelings. Samantha started becoming a regular at my part of the house. At this point, Tommy and Emma began spending most of their time on my side. Tommy had moved into my part of the house and treated it as his main bedroom. Emma, who initially spent most of her time on Linda's side, started spending more and more time with Samantha. Samantha seemed to become the great sister Emma never had. Soon, Samantha began spending all weekends and most evenings during the week with me. The only disagreement Linda expressed was when I decided to bring Samantha to our second family dinner. Linda was polite, but it was clear to everyone that she did not want this to become a regular occurrence. The next day, Linda stopped me as I was preparing to leave for work. "Jim, I appreciate you talking, but I wish you wouldn't bring your girlfriend to our dinners. It's our time to be a family with the kids. That's special. In the future, I won't come to dinner when Samantha isn't there, but I'll also invite the kids to have dinner with me and Samantha if they want. This isn't fair, Jim. It's the only time we get to be together as a family." "So we're talking about fairness again, Linda. Actually, Samantha is becoming an important part of my life, and I want her to be more involved. Samantha gets along great with the kids. I don't think excluding Samantha from family dinners is fair to her, fair to me, or fair to the kids. If you want to exclude her, you're also excluding me." "But Jim," Linda said, "your honesty has always been, I buy what I want, regardless of my feelings. I'm sure you thought you were being honest sneaking out the back door to have sex with Mark Lavelier, even though we weren't living together anymore." It's surprising to see Linda think she can still manipulate me easily. Linda believes she still has leverage over me beyond parenting the kids. Linda, you threw honor out the window that night, so if you don't like it, fairness will be to start cooking all dinners at my part of the house, and I'll invite you over when we have them. Samantha is a great cook and loves to cook. With tears in her eyes, Linda said, "I'm sorry. I had made this clear. Samantha is always welcome to come to dinner whenever she wants." After the pool and hot tub were completed, Tommy especially enjoyed inviting Kim, Christy, and Susan over to play by the new pool. They flirted with Tommy unabashedly. I knew they were having a fun competition to see who could make Tommy blush the most. They started the competition by wearing tighter swimsuits. Eventually, Christy couldn't compete because her large breasts wouldn't allow her to wear too small a suit or they would pop out. But Christy won after she kissed Tommy in the pool, pressing her large chest against him. Tommy couldn't get out of the pool for about 10 minutes even though the water was cold. Clearly, Tommy was the real winner in their competition. The next day, Linda blocked my way as I was getting ready to leave for work. "Jim, I appreciate you talking, but I wish you wouldn't bring your girlfriend to our dinners. It's our time to be a family with the kids. That's special. In the future, I won't come to dinner when Samantha isn't there, but I'll also invite the kids to have dinner with me and Samantha if they want. This isn't fair, Jim. It's the only time we get to be together as a family." So we're talking about fairness again, Linda. Samantha is actually becoming an important part of my life, and I want her to be more involved. Samantha gets along great with the kids. I don't think excluding Samantha from family dinners is fair to her, fair to me, or fair to the kids. If you want to exclude her, you're also excluding me. "But Jim," Linda said, "your honesty has always been, I buy what I want, regardless of my feelings. I'm sure you thought you were being honest sneaking out the back door to have sex with Mark Lavalier, even though we weren't living together anymore. It's surprising to see Linda think she can still manipulate me easily. Linda believes she still has leverage over me beyond parenting the kids. Linda, you threw honor out the window that night, so if you don't like it, fairness will be to start cooking all dinners at my part of the house, and I'll invite you over when we have them. Samantha is a great cook and loves to cook. With tears in her eyes, Linda said, "I'm sorry. I had made this clear. Samantha is always welcome to come to dinner whenever she wants." After the pool and hot tub were completed, Tommy especially enjoyed inviting Kim, Christy, and Susan over to play by the new pool. They flirted with Tommy unabashedly. I knew they were having a fun competition to see who could make Tommy blush the most. They started the competition by wearing tighter swimsuits. Eventually, Christy couldn't compete because her large breasts wouldn't allow her to wear too small a suit, or they would pop out. But Christy won after she kissed Tommy in the pool, pressing her large chest against him. Tommy couldn't get out of the pool for about 10 minutes even though the water was cold. Clearly, Tommy was the real winner in their competition. I met them a couple of times, and they tried to convince me to get back with Linda. Each time, I ended up saying, "That sounds very convincing. Now tell me how you would feel if your partner cheated," because from what I saw that night, not only did they accept infidelity, but also encouraged others. In fact, I don't think it was a coincidence that we ended up at a club frequented by Mark Lavalier. I just happened to have the hottest wife. Karma is like that. And a few months later, I heard that the ladies had decided to move their get-together night to a new dance club that Mark Lavalier often visited without telling their husbands. A friend of Dave's from work told Dave that he saw Dee dancing with Mark at the club. He also mentioned that Mark disappeared for about an hour at the same time a table full of women left the club. Dave's friend didn't see Dee leave with the group. All their wives denied being there and said there must be some mistake. A few days later, Dave's friend sent a photo of him and his girlfriend at the club, clearly showing Mark Lavalier talking to the wives at the table. Eventually, the wives confessed, but all said that no one went with Mark. Of course, their stories didn't match, and eventually, the truth came out, but no one wanted to reveal who went with Mark. Unfortunately for them, when they finally named Dee, It was too late for all of them. Too many lies and trust were broken. From what I was told, when all the husbands got together to compare their wives' stories, Dave's conclusion summed it all up. They covered for each other for a long time. They easily lied to us. This wasn't the first time they had their ladies' night out. How do we know that night wasn't Dee's turn to have fun with Mark Lavalier or someone else? Each husband saw the look on his wife's face when Mark Lavalier approached our table that evening. Everyone heard how their wives accepted Linda's behavior and that she was lucky to have this opportunity. After the first bachelorette party Linda attended, all the husbands knew that their wives were excited because Linda talked about her sexual encounter with Mark. Initially, the husbands were happy for a little extra excitement in the bedroom. But a few months later, one of the husbands joked with another that he hated sleeping on the silk bed sheets. Comparing notes, both husbands realized that the silk sheets were new and both sets were white. In conversations with other husbands, 4 beds with new white silk sheets were discovered after the night Dee spent with Mark. The husbands began to worry that their wives were recreating their nights with him. All 4 couples divorced within a year. I knew all this because Dave was the first to divorce, and he apologized to me after explaining the reasons for his divorce. Subsequently, each husband individually apologized to me for their role in that night with Linda. They all said that if they had stood by me then, perhaps they would have sent a clearer message to their wives, and they would still be happily married. As for Mark Lavalier, his pursuit of married women had angered someone not to be trifled with. No one knew who did it, but when Mark Lavalier stepped out the back door of the club with his latest woman, a person wearing a ski mask tasered him. Before Mark could recover, the person struck his genitals. While Mark screamed, clutching his crotch, the person shattered both of Mark's knees. Despite having video, no one was brought to justice because too many husbands had motive and opportunity. Mark lost his ability to walk. Regarding Linda, the last time we talked about us was on the day Emma moved out. We had divorced, and I had rented out my part of the house and moved to a beachside apartment. Standing in the driveway, Linda asked if she could talk to me after Emma drove off to college. "Jim, I still love you. I made a terrible mistake and have regretted it every day since then. Since then, I haven't dated or even looked at another man. I know you haven't been in a serious relationship with anyone since Samantha, and I want you to move back in with me, just to see how things go." Then Linda took off a necklace from her neck and handed it to me. At the end of the chain was my wedding ring, the ring I had given to Dee on the night Linda left me. Linda looked at me with hope in her eyes. "You still don't understand what went wrong, Linda. That night you thought you could test my love for you, but in reality, it was a test of your love for me. But I really do love you. No, you liked what we had. You loved having a perfect marriage, a perfect husband, perfect kids. You liked that I didn't treat you as a possession, as a trophy wife. We made important decisions together. You loved that although we had less sex, it was still passionate like when we first met." About Linda, the last time we talked about us was on the day Emma left for college. We were divorced, and I had leased my part of the house and moved to a beachfront apartment. Standing on the driveway, Linda asked if she could talk to me after Emma drove off to university. "Jim, I still love you. I made a terrible mistake, and I've regretted it every single day since then. Since then, I haven't dated or even looked at another man. I know you haven't been in a serious relationship with anyone since Samantha, and I want you to move back in with me, just to see how things go." Linda then took off a necklace from her neck and handed it to me. On the end of the chain was my wedding ring, the ring I had given to Dee the night Linda left me. Linda looked at me with hope in her eyes. "You still don't understand what went wrong, Linda. That night you thought you could test my love for you, but actually, it was a test of your love for me. But I really love you. No, you liked what we had. You loved having a perfect marriage, a perfect husband, perfect kids. You liked that I always cared about your feelings more than anyone else. You liked the financial security I provided, allowing you to do what you wanted. But most of all, You liked that I trusted you without question. Now you love me more than ever because you know you'll never find anyone else who makes you as happy. No one will ever love you as much as I did." Linda didn't move, still holding the necklace outstretched in her hand, but her hand was white-knuckled, grasping it in desperation. "You didn't appreciate what you had. And now it's gone. I can't be near you anymore. I will never again put you in a position where you have the opportunity to do to me what you did. I always thought we were partners against the world, but you killed us when you ran off with Mark Lavalier." Linda started to cry. "How many times do I have to say I'm sorry for going with him? It was never about Mark, Linda. You thought you were lucky when Mark Lavalier decided to take you home with him. But I was the lucky one. When I was at my lowest and your friends tried to convince me I was a fool for being angry, I realized you showed me that we were a great couple, but not because of you, because of me. You left because my love was too strong, not your love. My love would never even consider doing what you did. My love was the music we danced to, what made us special. Sitting at that table from hell, angry, thinking about these things, I saw Samantha across the room looking sad. When she saw me looking at her, she smiled, her amazing smile reminding me that I was still a man and still had a chance to be happy with someone. I could pour all my love and loyalty into a new us, a different us. Then you opened my eyes and set me free. With that, I got into my convertible and drove off with a big smile on my face. I couldn't wait to get home as soon as possible. Samantha had quit her job elsewhere and moved in with me since last week. Since then, she's been doing a great job convincing me that she always needed me in her life. Trust is a wonderful thing.